My husband and 5 other family members were all murdered. I was lucky to escape because I was being held at the police station. As a victim's family member, I was consumed by an unbearable grief, unable to break free. Yet, the police questioned me repeatedly. Who exactly are your accomplices? Their words completely stunned me. It took me a few seconds to compose myself before I stammered. What do you mean? The man speaking, Detective Tan, was the officer in charge of the case. He glanced at me and stated bluntly, Serene Kang, we suspect you conspired with the perpetrator to plan this case. Full honesty will lead to leniency. We hope for your full cooperation. Hearing this, my eyes widened in disbelief. You're saying, did it? Seeing his serious expression, I couldn't help but let out a cynical laugh. Detective Tan, I understand the pressure this case puts on you, but isn't it absurd to accuse me of being the killer just to close the case? After all, when the murders happened, I was right here at the police station. That's precisely why I was lucky to escape death. The other party seemed to have anticipated my response, slowly opening his mouth. That's precisely the brilliance of your and the perpetrator's plan. You saved your own life while creating a perfect alibi. I admit, I was almost fooled by you. It's just a pity that heaven's net is vast. Though its meshes are wide, nothing escaped. We still found a loophole. My husband's death had already plunged me into the deepest despair, and now I was being suspected as a murderer. I was instantly overwhelmed with both sorrow and indignation. Intentional? Have you thoroughly read my statement, sir? But how can my detention be considered intentional? That day was a Friday, and I was preparing to go back to my hometown for my parents' death anniversary when I unexpectedly received a call from my husband, Ethan Hayes. His voice was urgent, telling me to hurry to the hospital. I thought something major had happened at home, so I rushed back, only to find out my mother-in-law had been knocked down by a stray dog in the apartment complex and broken her leg. At that time, my sister-in-law was traveling, and Ethan was constantly working overtime at his company. Naturally, the responsibility for her care fell to me, already unable to return home for my parents' memorial. I felt a deep sense of grievance. When I went to the building management to demand compensation, they made every excuse imaginable. First, they said the dog didn't belong to a resident, then claimed there were no cameras to check. Finally, they became brazenly insulting, resorting to personal attacks. Hundreds of people pass through this complex every day, so why did it bite your mother-in-law specifically? She must have provoked it. I think you people are just putting on a show to extort money. Aren't you afraid of being bitten to death? She yelled, pushing me. I almost hit my head, so in self-defense, I swung the thermos I was holding. I don't remember how many times I hit her, only that the woman screamed a few times before collapsing motionless. Afterwards, the management called the police. She adamantly refused to reconcile, which is why I was detained. Detective, according to you, my mother-in-law being bitten by a dog and the management staff verbally abusing me. All of it was intentionally orchestrated by me. The other party didn't answer directly but retorted, and it wasn't. At this point, I burst out laughing from anger. Detective Tan, If you have proof, then please, arrest me. If not, I apologize, but I don't have time to play guessing games with you. After saying this, I even made a dismissive gesture. My sarcasm didn't anger the other party. What's the rush? Of course, I have evidence. Evidence? My throat tightened, and I looked at him in disbelief. What evidence could there be when I clearly didn't kill anyone? Were they trying to frame me? Since the case occurred, the once peaceful city had plunged into panic. Some speculated it was a serial killer. Others claimed it was just the beginning of a social vendetta. In short, within a short period, the public was buzzing, and it was said that superiors had ordered the case to be solved within 3 days. Yesterday, they were running around like headless flies, but today they're making such claims. It wasn't hard to suspect they intended to make me a scapegoat. Detective Tan saw through my thoughts and spoke with a sneer. Don't worry, we won't wrong any good person, nor will we let any villain escape. He heavily emphasized the words villain, as if my guilt was an unchangeable truth. I activated the recording function on my phone and placed it on the table. You don't mind, do you? Just in case you intend to frame me. Precaution is essential. If they truly had other intentions, at least this would be evidence. Though I couldn't afford an expensive lawyer, I wasn't afraid to use public opinion to expose them. Detective Tan gave a faint smile and nodded. Of course, but rest assured, I won't wrong you. As he finished speaking, Detective Tan handed me a file. Inside was the autopsy report. Although I had seen the horrific scene after their deaths when identifying the bodies, now my husband's pale face unexpectedly reappeared before my eyes. I still couldn't help but burst into uncontrollable sobs. Such horrifying stab wounds. I dared not imagine how much pain he must have suffered when he was alive. I trembled with tears, looking up at Detective Tan. Is his what you call evidence? He pulled out 2 sheets of paper and gestured for me to wipe my tears. The autopsy report shows that your husband, Ethan Hussey, his stepson, Julian Hasey, his sister-in-law, Tina Hussey, and your father-in-law, grandfather Hussey, all died from slit throats. Your mother-in-law, Madame Tan, died from falling from a height. Traces of sedatives were found in all 5 bodies. I nodded. That's right. At the time, the police speculated the killer might have drugged them first, then snuck into the house after everyone was asleep. But unexpectedly that evening, my mother-in-law wasn't feeling well and barely ate, so she had the least amount of sedatives in her stomach. Although it's unclear exactly what happened then, in short, my mother-in-law woke up, discovered the intruder, and tried to call for help, resulting in her being pushed downstairs by the killer. This was confirmed by the neighbors. They first heard 2 shouts for help, then a scream and the sound of a heavy object falling. When they ran out to look, they found my mother-in-law had already passed away. I still didn't understand. So, what does any of this have to do with me being the killer? Initially, we noticed the door lock wasn't forced, so we suspected the perpetrator was an acquaintance. But what if the killer got the password from someone else? My voice involuntarily rose. Are you suspecting that I hired someone to kill their entire family? That's not all. The other party cut me off without hesitation. We questioned the neighbors in the complex. They all said you had no standing in that household. Aside from your husband, everyone else abused and cursed you. A few days before your detention, you were even heard shouting, saying you'd kill your mother-in-law sooner or later. Is that so? I scoffed. Detective, those were just words spoken in anger. Your wife probably says things like that sometimes too, like regretting marrying you or wanting to kill that scoundrel of a husband. Hearing that, Detective Tan's face became somewhat displeased. Detective Tan's wife was an extremely short-tempered woman. Previously, he had stayed up late working on a case and didn't return home, leading his wife to misunderstand that he was seeing another woman. She caused a scene at the police station, cursing him, and it even made local news back then. Every woman who has suffered abuse in a marriage sometimes says thoughtless things. I am just one of them. Since you've investigated, you must know how much my husband and I loved each other. Even if I wanted to kill my mother-in-law, why would I kill my husband too? Furthermore, he saved my life. On my 27th birthday, 2 life-altering events occurred. My parents died simultaneously, and I met Ethan Hussey. I often wondered if heaven didn't allow too many people to love me to exist by my side. So when it sent Ethan, it took my parents away at the same time. That family road trip had been planned for ages. The entire journey was filled with laughter. My mother occasionally fed my father fruit, and sometimes she would turn to tell me stories of their old romance. I mentioned I liked jackfruit. Your father gave it to me for a whole month straight, she said, and eventually just seeing jackfruit made me want to throw up. He was so young then. All he thought about was making me happy. My father turned to boast to me, but back then, all your mother's roommates were so envious of her. Suddenly, a huge rock appeared on the deserted road. My father swerved desperately, but it was too late. The accident happened in an instant. Airbags deployed, and a ringing sound echoed in my ears. When I regained consciousness, the car was almost completely burnt. Through the black soot, I vaguely saw my parents' final embrace. They held hands tightly, both looking towards the back seat where I was. I struggled to crawl towards them, but was pulled back by a pair of strong hands. Looking up, I was met with Ethan Hesse's dark eyes. Ethan rushed me to a nearby hospital, fronting the fees. After ensuring other family members were taken care of, he quietly left. The accident left me with severe psychological trauma and, at the same time, made me fall in love with Ethan Hussey. I used the phone number he left at the hospital to find him. At that time, he had recently divorced his ex-wife. When I made my move, his first reaction was to refuse. He said it wasn't love. To prove my love for him, I decided to settle in his city, found a job, and rented a place. 6 months later, he accepted me and brought me home. I thought the trials were over. But they were just beginning. Ethan Hussey's ex-wife was perfect, highly educated, beautiful, and well-paid. In the years they were married, the Hussey family never lacked money. I, on the other hand, barely earned enough to support myself. The accident hadn't disfigured me, but it left a visible scar. More importantly, I couldn't have children. Despite his family's objections, Ethan resolutely married me. To compensate for the pain others had inflicted upon me, he doted on me almost excessively, even cutting off ties with his family for my sake. At this point, I sniffled, tears welling up as I looked at Detective Tan thoughts. I loved my husband more than my own life. I had no reason whatsoever to kill him. The other party gave a half smile, half sneer. Just because you don't have one doesn't mean your accomplices don't. He tried to find a crack in my composure, but unfortunately, I disappointed him. I met his scrutinizing gaze calmly. After a few seconds of silence, he spoke again. Indeed, as you said, you have no reason to kill Ethan Hussey. Even when you and your accomplice discussed cooperation, you tried to save Ethan Hussey's life. Perhaps your accomplice disagreed. Or perhaps you realized you couldn't save Ethan Hussey. If he survived, he would provide more evidence, endangering your accomplice. To commit the perfect crime, you were forced to sacrifice him. Before coming to the station, I was mentally prepared to be slandered and detained. But I didn't expect them to be even more unreliable than I imagined. Their so-called evidence was based purely on speculation. The thought that my husband's life had to depend on this man in front of me, who only spun theories, made my blood boil. Easy. What is what you call evidence, Detective Tan? My husband's body is barely cold, and instead of catching the killer, you're standing here telling me nonsense. If you want to use me to meet your quota, just say so directly. I'll confess. I looked directly into the red glowing camera. I, Serene Kang, escaped from this station and personally killed my husband's entire family of 5. Death penalty or life, imprisonment, I accept it all. Go on. Arrest me. Arrest me. My eyes red, I shrieked hysterically. Detective Tan, being experienced, only sneered at my loss of control and retorted, "How did you know?" Serena Kang, we found stimulants in the dog that bit your mother-in-law, identical to the type you purchased. At this, I was completely stunned. Stimulants? What are you talking about? Detective Tan murmured, still pretending. Then pushed a piece of paper towards me. The type of medicine found in your bedroom closet. See for yourself. Indeed, there was a record of purchase using my health insurance card, but I was certain I hadn't bought that medicine. Instinctively, I crumpled the paper in my hand, and a fragmented image flashed through my mind. Things I hadn't understood before suddenly made sense. So that's how it was. After a few seconds of stunned silence, I looked at Detective Tan with cold eyes. A health insurance card isn't a bank card. It can be used without the owner present. You should know such a basic fact, shouldn't you? Whether bought at a pharmacy or a hospital, there are surely cameras. My suggestion is you should go check. I swallowed several times to hold back the words useless idiots, but clearly the other party detected my mocking tone. We're not as useless as you think. The medicine was bought at a pharmacy very far from your home. Coincidentally, the store's camera was broken that day, and even more coincidentally, it was a members' event day. So the store was packed with people. He paused for a moment. The store staff only remembers the buyer as a woman dressed discreetly. Her face wasn't visible. I retorted, "So you just assume it was me?" I wondered if this so-called evidence would even hold up in court. At that moment, Detective Tan's phone suddenly rang. He stood up and stepped outside. Until deep in there, through the door, I vaguely heard a few words like breakthrough lead. When he returned, he said nothing more, gathered his things, and left. If you think of anything important, feel free to contact me anytime. As he said this, he looked at me meaningfully, as if inviting me to confess. With the sound of the door closing, I lost all strength and collapsed onto the floor. The nail marks dug into my palms betrayed my true emotions. Detective Tan wasn't wrong. My mother-in-law being bitten by a dog really was a staged incident. I just didn't understand why the person who chose to avenge me would lead clues back to me, implicate my husband, and try to send me to prison. No, that's not right. If they truly wanted to harm me, they wouldn't have chosen the time I was detained to kill the whole family. Moreover, that person also disrupted my original plan to act. Yes, I had indeed planned to kill their entire family myself. To be precise, if the woman from the management office hadn't caused the disturbance, I would have been the one to act. I had been preparing for this day for nearly half a year. My original plan was to create a perfect crime, much like what just happened. After all, ending up in prison for a bunch of trash wasn't a good option. But then I discovered that a perfect crime was too difficult. Besides, I didn't want to wait anymore. Compared to waiting to escape conviction, I wished those scumbags would die sooner. In that sense, I should even thank the perpetrator. At least I had escaped perfectly. Looking at my slightly aged reflection in the mirror, my thoughts were suddenly pulled back years ago. Back then, I was young and passionate. Meeting Ethan Hyde, I had once sworn I would marry no one but him. Who would have thought that now I would contemplate killing him with my own hands? Truly, genuine love fades easily, and the world is impermanent. Before 2 days of peace had passed, Detective Tan came to find me again. The only difference was that this time it was the interrogation room. It was as if he had already concluded that I was the killer. Your husband has been murdered. His body still hasn't gone cold, and Miss Kang seems to be in good spirits, out shopping all day. It wasn't surprising. For the past few days, wherever I went, I felt like I was being followed. So, it was the police. Facing his sarcastic attitude, I retorted unapologetically, "Knowing the police are helpless, I'm giving you plenty of time." "I wouldn't want you to rush and pin the blame on me," he sneered, "though Miss Kang understands. We wouldn't dare to be careless, even with a small lead. I think you'll be interested." With that, he took a red notebook from the table. The familiar cover immediately choked me. It wasn't surprising that I couldn't find it after the incident. It had fallen into the hands of the police. But why didn't they produce it back then? Surely, the police wouldn't hide evidence like that. Did they just acquire it? Who gave it to them? The killer. While I was wildly speculating, Detective Tan placed the notebook in my hand. Looks familiar, doesn't it? I looked up directly into his scrutinizing eyes. What's there to ask? This is mine. This notebook was a gift from Ethan Hasse the year we got married. At that time, my relationship with his parents was extremely bad. To force us to break up, his parents used the excuse of demanding his salary card. Serene, you've suffered so much with me. Maybe we shouldn't. I resolutely cut him off. I swore before my parents' graves, in this life, come what may, I must find you. It's just his salary card. I still have the money you transferred to me before. Tomorrow, I'll buy a notebook to keep records. I'll just have to be a bit more frugal. As long as I'm with you, I won't feel any hardship. The next day, Ethan Hasse brought me this very notebook. The memory brought tears to my eyes. Opening the notebook, the first few pages were filled with meticulous numbers. 10 buns, 1.5 dong, carrots, 2.3 dong, pork, 10 dong. That period, though poor, was very happy. However, that happiness didn't last long. Ethan Hasse's son, Julian, proactively suggested we move back home. He said he missed his father and couldn't bear to see his father live such a difficult life. In truth, I knew perfectly well that he simply couldn't stand the thought of Ethan and I living happily on our own. Flipping through a few more pages, instead of meticulous numbers, there were messy, crossed-out plans. Car accident, drowning, poisoning, robbery, and murder, falling off a mountain. To kill the entire Hasse family, I had watched thousands of detective films for half a year. Each time I finished one, I revised my plan. The notebook, originally a symbol of love, had ultimately become a death note. My previous judgment was indeed wrong. Detective Tan suddenly said, out of the blue. I looked at him in confusion. "Oh, I originally thought you didn't want to kill Ethan Hasse. Now, I realize your purpose in marrying Ethan Hasse all those years ago was to conveniently kill their entire family." My heart skipped a beat and cold sweat immediately drenched my back, but I maintained a calm expression and said, "I don't understand. It's all right if you don't understand. I can tell you slowly." With that, Detective Tan took the notebook from my hand. I don't know if it was my imagination, but although his voice still carried a hint of sarcasm, the look in his eyes had clearly softened. "Everything must start from your parents' car accident." My pupil suddenly dilated, and I stared at him in astonishment. "What does this have to do with my parents' car accident?" He sighed, as if making a great resolve, and stated clearly, "The people who caused your parents' death were the entire Hasse family. More precisely, it was Ethan Hasse's son, Julian Hasse." Hearing this, my heart felt as if it were being squeezed in someone's hand. A suffocating pain. Tears flowed uncontrollably, and my voice trembled. "What nonsense are you talking about?" The interrogation room suddenly fell silent, save for my sobbing. After an unknown amount of time, Detective Tan spoke again. His voice was gentle, conciliatory. "We already know the whole truth. You don't need to hide anymore." "What truth?" "Hide what?" "The rock that caused your family's car accident back then was placed there by Julian Hasse. That autumn, Ethan Hasse had just gotten divorced and was not in a good mood. His father proactively suggested a road trip, both to help Ethan Hasse unwind and to let Julian Hasse see the beautiful scenery of the country. When they reached that particular stretch of road, Julian Hassey suddenly threw a tantrum. He said he'd been sitting too long and wanted to get out and play. Ethan Hassey refused, and Julian started crying loudly and making a ruckus in the car. His grandparents couldn't bear to see their grandson crying and gasping for breath, so they quickly told Ethan Hassey to pull over. On the deserted road, Julian Hassey had a great time playing, carrying rocks from one spot to another. Ethan Hassey tried to stop him, saying, "Putting rocks in the middle of the road is dangerous." Seeing Julian about to cry again, Ethan's father snapped, "What's the harm in playing a little? There are no cars around here. For goodness sake." Julian went back and forth several times, placing countless large and small rocks in the middle of the road. When he got tired of playing, he urged everyone to continue. Ethan Hassey, slightly more safety conscious at that point, said they should clear the scattered rocks from the road. After playing, the family prepared to drive off. Less than 2 minutes after they left, a violent crash echoed from behind. When Ethan Hassey looked back, he saw my family's car overturned on the ground. The car was smoking, with 3 people trapped inside, gasping for breath. Ethan Hassey angrily yelled at his parents, "I told you not to put rocks in the middle of the road, but you deliberately didn't listen. Now something's happened. What are you going to do?" Ethan Hassey's father paused for a few seconds. "If they're dead, no one will find out." He turned back, just catching the terrified eyes of my parents. They pleaded, Please don't do this." Their pleas didn't move the Hassey family in the slightest. Ethan Hassey's father, without hesitation, pulled out a lighter. Just as he was about to throw it, my father used his last bit of strength to shout a single sentence. That very sentence saved your life. At this point, Detective Tan offered me a tissue. I was crying so hard I couldn't even manage a proper thank you. The scene of my parents' deaths flooded my mind again. Impossible to stop. You already know the rest. My hand hovered in the air, about to take the tissue, my eyes red and swollen, as I stared disbelievingly at the man in front of me. What do I know? Detective Tan's gaze at me had softened considerably, but his words remained cold. Were you really unconscious then? No. You weren't. You clearly heard how your parents begged the Hassey family. And you also heard the immense price your father had to pay to save your life. That's why you went to such lengths to marry Ethan Hassey. Your primary goal was to avenge your parents. I clenched my teeth, trying to control my emotions. Are you kidding me? Detective Tan lowered his head. The gentleness in his eyes had vanished, replaced by resolve. If you truly didn't know what happened that day, you would have anxiously asked how your father managed to save your life. You would have asked why they ultimately died. My heart skipped a beat. So that's it? He was testing me. I casually wiped the tears from my face, because I don't believe what you're saying. The entire Hassey family is dead. Who could have told you these things? It's all just fabrication. No, there's also an eyewitness, Detective Tan said. That day, besides the Hassey family, Ethan Hassey's mother's older sister, his aunt, was also on that desolate road. Auntie was there that day. For years, she was the only one besides Ethan Hassey who treated me well, whether it was Lunar New Year or my birthday. She always gave me red envelopes. Later, when she realized the money would be stolen by his paternal grandparents, she secretly transferred money to me instead. She often told me to treat myself well and not try to win over my in-laws. So that was because of guilt. Detective Tan ignored my dazed state and continued. Upon witnessing 2 lives perish right before her eyes, your aunt collapsed on the spot. When she regained consciousness, she had completely lost her memory. Doctors said it was an automatic protective mechanism of the brain. But when she learned her younger sister and entire family had been murdered, she was deeply agitated and recalled all those painful memories. Yesterday, after being discharged from the hospital, she rushed to the police station to report the crime, saying she was sure he had killed the entire Asi family. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh, the sound echoing in the quiet interrogation room. No wonder my in-laws were stunned and disoriented the first time they met me. No matter how hard I tried to please them, I never got a smile. No wonder Julian Hesse always said, "Why didn't I die that time?" So that's the truth. They didn't hate me. They were afraid. Afraid I was faking unconsciousness that day. Afraid I would discover the truth. Afraid I would kill them. I suddenly found it absurd. Every time my father-in-law abused me, my mother-in-law cursed me, or Julian Hesse bullied me, Ethan Hussey would say with a pained expression, "Wife, I'm sorry. You have to suffer because of me. But they are my family, after all. Can you endure it for my sake?" I also comforted myself. Yes, Ethan saved my life. What's wrong with enduring a little for him? I never imagined the person who saved me had originally wanted to kill me. So the wound on his hand back then wasn't from saving my parents, but rather, I struggled to suppress my emotions, my voice thick with tears, asking, "So what exactly did my father say that day?" Detective Tan looked at me deeply. "Your father said that when you were young, he bought you a huge insurance policy. This policy would only mature when you turned 30, and you would only receive the money if you were still alive." I could even imagine my father's expression when he said those words. Clearly, despite being in such a severe accident and heavily injured, he still found a way to save my life. Please, that money is 3 million. You see, my daughter is unconscious. She has no idea what's happening. As long as you spare her life, I'm willing to give that money to you. Please." "Ethan Hazy just agreed like that?" I asked. Given Ethan Hazy's suspicious nature, he couldn't have agreed so easily. Of course not. "Your father wrote a letter, a will, if you will." With that, Detective Tan handed me a faded old piece of paper. Though called a will, it only contained a few sentences. The bloodstains on it had faded over time. My father had written, "My daughter, little Hussey, saved your life. He wanted to save your parents too, but we couldn't get out. To repay him, I unilaterally transferred your insurance beneficiary rights to him. My daughter, never betray his kindness. This was left for me. Why wasn't it given to me? Where did you find this? And where is my aunt? I want to see my aunt. I want to know if my parents said anything else before they died." Just as Detective Tan was about to speak, a knock echoed at the interrogation room door. "Detective Tan, someone's here to report a crime. Can you step out for a moment?" As the person spoke, their eyes remained fixed on me. I don't know how much time passed, so long that my eyes were swollen shut from crying before Detective Tan returned. The police officer taking notes must have told him that my tears hadn't stopped. When he came back, he brought me a cold compress. Compress your eyes. If your parents saw you like this, they'd be heartbroken. I looked up stubbornly. You still haven't answered my questions. Where did that come from? Detective Tan paused for a moment. You can go home first. I'll tell you everything once I find the truth. Perhaps fearing I wouldn't leave, he added. Don't worry. At the latest, I will tell you the complete truth tomorrow. Detective Tan considerately drove me home, comforting me continuously along the way. His demeanor was completely different from that morning when he called me to the police station. My intuition told me he must have found the real killer. Sure enough, early the next morning, he came to find me again. The dark circles under his eyes and the bloodshot streaks hinted that he had been up all night. We found the killer who murdered your husband's entire family, I choked, and last night's phone call immediately flashed through my mind. That person had said, "Tell me to wait a little longer. Everything is about to come to light. I will definitely be able to get away completely unharmed." I knew that person wouldn't lie to me, but I didn't expect this day to arrive so quickly. I turned around, my voice flat, and said, "Go on." Honestly, I no longer cared who killed the High-C family. The only thing I wanted to know was where that blood-stained will was found. The other party saw through my thoughts and answered that question first. This was discovered by Ethan Hussey's aunt, and it was this very item that stimulated her to recover her memories. Ethan Hussey was very meticulous in his planning. He knew that if the will came directly into your hands, it would surely make you suspicious. So, he deliberately left his phone number at the hospital, knowing that you would definitely contact him proactively, whether to thank him or to ask about your parents' last words. He intended to keep in touch with you, occasionally acting pathetic in front of you. From now until you turn 30, there are only 3 years left. Once you turn 30, he would intentionally say his father was gravely ill and needed money. At that point, he would have his mother bring the paper to you, and they would act out a scene right in front of you. One person would ask why the paper wasn't thrown away, while the other would cry, saying, "Are you going to abandon your father's dying wish?" They would want me to kneel before them, begging, saying even a loan would do. He saved my life. How could I lend it to him? Of course, it would be a gift. It's just that he didn't expect me to actively pursue him. So that item was no longer necessary. Ethan Hussey told his mother to dispose of it, but his mother, fearing marital troubles, secretly kept it, and it was eventually found by the aunt. So that's how it was. I should even thank my mother-in-law for her stinginess and suspicion. Otherwise, I would never have seen my father's will. So, who is the killer who murdered the whole family? I asked this not because I wanted to know the truth, but simply to thank that person. Oh. Detective Tan looked at me silently. Don't you know who it is? I gave him a cold smile. At this point, are you still suspecting that the killer and I are on the same side? He shook his head. It's not suspicion. It's the truth. But rest assured, we won't arrest you or convict you. There are just a few things we want to clarify. Not arrest me. More like I can't arrest me. The killer still hasn't been found, and there's no evidence to prove I'm an accomplice. To call their helplessness justice, how ridiculous. But that's good too. Those who deserve to die are dead, and good people shouldn't be caught. Are you thinking that we police are helpless, unable to find the killer, and can only try to trap you again and again? That's just the truth. You're wrong. We found the killer, but the killer chose suicide to protect you. Suicide? I subtly furrowed my brow, scrutinizing the man in front of me from head to toe. What new game is this? Stop pretending. Detective Tan looked at me with an expression that said, I know everything. The killer is your mother-in-law. She didn't hesitate to kill her husband, son, and grandson to protect you. I couldn't hold back anymore and burst into laughter. My mother-in-law? You're saying, I thought, old woman, who hated me so much, she wanted to torment me to death, personally killed her husband, her beloved son, and her precious grandson, for my sake. Seeing him nod again, I laughed and grew loud. Detective Tan detected the sarcasm in my voice, but continued to affirm. Yes, your mother-in-law, Madame Tan, killed 3 people to protect you. She knew she couldn't escape. So to clear you of suspicion, she chose suicide. Before this, I found it strange why Madame Tan had no knife wounds on her body. Now I understand. If she had stabbed herself, it would have created a loophole. Better to throw herself from a height, which would appear more genuine. I admit she executed this case perfectly, using so-called evidence to make us suspect you, then making us dismiss those suspicions. Even the timing for us to discover she was the killer was meticulously calculated. If I'm not mistaken, you must have seen the paper in your aunt's hand long ago. Furthermore, your aunt never lost her memory. Or perhaps she wasn't even at the scene that day. Detective Tan's confident tone sent a chill down my spine. In this plan, the most important person is the aunt. Fabricating someone who wasn't even at the scene is inherently very difficult. But fate was on your side. Before the Hassii family's trip, the aunt was ill, and no one saw her for half a month. Whether she was truly recuperating at home or had gone on the trip with them, no one knows. My heart pounded, and my palms were clammy with sweat, but I maintained a calm facade. I know nothing of what you're saying. If you say my mother-in-law killed the entire Hassii family, then so be it. Detective Tan didn't stop because of my denial. Aren't you curious? How did you execute it so perfectly, yet I still suspect you? I smiled, replying calmly, not curious, because I'm not the killer. Yesterday, Lily Zhang came to report a crime. Lily Zhang? I furrowed my brows tightly. Who's that? After a moment, I remembered she was the management staff member, the very woman I had hit on the head, which led to my detention at the station. She heard you were considered a suspect and rushed to the police station to speak up for you. As he spoke, he played a video for me. The woman in the video was indeed Lily Zhang. Miss Kang's mother-in-law, Madame Tan, came to me a few days ago, gave me 2,000 yuan, and asked for my help with something. She said that in a few days, her daughter-in-law, Serene Kang, would come to our office to cause trouble. At that time, I absolutely had to intentionally say harsh words to provoke her into acting. Once she made a move, I was to call the police, and no matter the injury, she had to be locked up for a few days. At first, I didn't want to agree. Miss Kang is a very good person and everyone normally knows that her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship wasn't harmonious. But she then gave me an additional 5,000 yuan and even knelt, begging, saying it was for Miss Kang's own good. My child was sick at the time, and I desperately needed the money. So I agreed. Yesterday, when I heard everyone spreading rumors that Miss Kang had conspired with an outside man to kill Madame Tan's entire family, I became frightened. I don't know if this lead is useful, but I felt I should tell you, officers. Officers, and this money, do I need to return it? The video ended, the image frozen on Lily Zhang handing over the money. Detective Tan retrieved his phone and coldly uttered, "I must say very cunning. You must understand what I mean by cunning. Right?" Of course, I understood. If Lily Zhang had rushed straight to the police to say my mother-in-law framed me, it would have been too obvious. She didn't do that. Instead, she emphasized that the incident happened a few days ago and deliberately focused on the money. This indirectly proved that everything was a drama orchestrated by my mother-in-law. Combined with the previous evidence, using my insurance card to buy medicine, and the aunt suddenly recovering her memory at just the right time, it was very difficult not to suspect that my mother-in-law had intentionally set a trap to harm me. I thought the police must have investigated other things, such as her position in the household. Indeed, in the very next second, Detective Tan addressed it. At this point in the investigation, we naturally had to look into Madame Tan's motive for murder. The aunt told the police, Madame Tan standing in the house was no different from mine. I was tormented by everyone, while she was tormented by everyone except me. Don't blame my sister for bullying Miss Kang. My sister is also a suffering woman. Since marrying into the Hasi family, she's never had a peaceful day. Miss Kang at least had Ethan Hasi to protect her, but my sister's situation was even more tragic. That bastard husband would get drunk every day and treat her like a dog. She had no say in the house whatsoever. That's right, I was physically abused, while my mother-in-law suffered mental abuse, a kind of psychological manipulation. Even before I married into the Hasiai family, she no longer perceived that kind of mistreatment as wrong. You and Madame Tan discussed everything, or rather, you originally intended to act yourself, but she couldn't bear it, couldn't bear for someone as young as you to carry the weight of several lives. Did it hurt to do it? That was her biological son. Yeah, but to free you from torment. She suppressed that pain. In my mind, my mother-in-law's words echoed, "What are you going to do? Will killing them solve anything? You're so young. Why would you sacrifice your entire life for those scum? Mother knows you're very upset inside, but serene. Your parents risked their lives to save yours. They surely wouldn't want to see you go down this path. Don't rush. Let's think long term. Mother promises to help you all right." I lowered my head, adjusted my expression, and then spoke. "I apologize, but I don't understand anything you're saying. I hated my mother-in-law, and my mother-in-law hated me. I never cooperated with her. As for you saying she's the killer, I'm willing to accept that. If there's nothing else, I'd like to rest." Detective Tan must not have expected me to be so stubborn. After a few seconds of facing each other, he asked one last question. "Don't you want to know what your mother-in-law said before she died?" Without hesitation, I waved my hand. "Sorry. I'm really not interested in her matters." I took a deep breath, gathering all my strength to speak. I don't know why you think she and I were on the same side, but I can make it clear. I had no knowledge of her committing murder. Do you think inventing a hollow moving story will hook me? Detective Tan, the Madame Tan in your mouth might kill her own family for me. But the Madame Tan in real life only knew how to curse me daily. Only knew how to splash boiling water on my arm. Only knew how to stand by when the old women downstairs called me a promiscuous woman who dressed provocatively to seduce her own son. She only knew how to make me bring a chair into the kitchen to eat scraps and leftovers during family gatherings. In the Hasiya household, forget dignity or status. They didn't even see me as a human, simply because I was the one who paid to pursue him. Over the years, the only thing that kept me going was Ethan Hasiya. I once thought he was the salvation of my life, the one who pulled me out of hell. But the truth is, he was the one who held me tight in that hell. Now, finally, I am free. After Detective Tan left, I couldn't hold on anymore and collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Sweat streamed down my forehead and cheeks. His gaze as he left was still full of suspicion, as if saying, "Don't let me find out you're lying." I would disappoint him, because I wasn't lying at all. I just hadn't told the whole truth. She once said, "Serene, just endure it a little longer. Only then will you not have to serve." Julian, I know how he bullies you, and I truly have no other way. The moment boiling water splashed on my arm, her eyes were red and swollen. I later learned that Julian Haisi had agreed to record me for his classmates that day, but because my arm was injured, I couldn't help him bathe. She said, "Mother has already spoken to those old women downstairs." Although the words were a bit harsh, at least no one is spreading rumors that you and Ethan, Hazi's father, are having an affair anymore. You've suffered enough. "Well," she said, serene, "don't come to the dining table. You don't know how disgusting the men of the Haisi family are." Right then, my sister-in-law came to the dining table and was severely injured when the drunk old man hit her with a chair. Such things happened every year. She wanted to be kind to me, but couldn't openly treat me well. She didn't have the ability, nor did she dare to, because my father-in-law had said that in this house, only Ethan Hazi could be kind to me. Only then would I follow him wholeheartedly. No, I guess I did lie. What kept me going all these years wasn't Ethan Hazi, but something else. You know,